All right, let's dive right into it. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking one of the absolute most philosophically dense and honestly poetically striking texts in all of ancient literature, the Book of Job. Now, we're not just looking at a historical document here. This is a really profound exploration of human vulnerability, the literal architecture of the cosmos, and the hard limits of human understanding. So get ready, because we're going to break down the structure, the core arguments, and the stunning imagery of this absolute masterpiece. It all boils down to a question that's so simple, yet incredibly elusive. Why do bad things happen to good people? Right? I mean, if there's a just design to the universe, why is there innocent suffering? I want you to keep this question right at the front of your mind, because every single argument, every poem, and every speech in this text revolves around trying to crack this exact problem. Section 1, the cosmic wager. So we kick things off in the land of Uz with a guy named Job, and the text describes him as perfect and upright. But up in a cosmic court, an adversary actually questions whether Job is only good because his life is so comfortably protected. So the divine allows a test, and literally in the blink of an eye, absolute catastrophe strikes. Job goes from massive, staggering wealth, we're talking 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, and 10 children, to just complete devastation. His animals are stolen or burned, his servants are slain, and a massive windstorm collapses a house, tragically killing all his sons and daughters. And if that wasn't enough, soon after, he's personally struck with agonizing boils from head to toe. He loses literally everything. Now, you'd probably expect pure outrage here, right? But despite this absolute devastation, Job just falls to the ground in mourning and utters these incredibly famous words. "Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither." He totally refuses to curse the divine. I mean, his own wife even tells him to just curse God and die. But Job holds fast. He accepts that the one who gives also has the power to take away. Section 2. The Miserable Comforters. Okay, so news of this ruin spreads, and Job's three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, show up. And their initial reaction is actually quite profound. Job's physical state is so degraded by the boils and the raw grief that they literally don't even recognize him. They weep, they tear their clothes, and then they do something really fascinating. They sit with him on the ground in total, absolute silence for 7 days and 7 nights. They realize that Job's grief is just so massive, so heavy, that words are completely useless. It's a really powerful depiction of deep empathy. But when that silence finally breaks, the tone shifts dramatically. Job opens his mouth and just unleashes this raw, poetic curse upon his own existence. He doesn't curse God, but he deeply, deeply wishes he had never been born. He cries out, "Let the day perish wherein I was born." He's demanding to know why light is given to someone in such misery and why life is given to the bitter in soul. That stoic acceptance we saw back in chapter 1, yeah, that's gone. It's replaced by a desperate, agonizing cry of human pain. Section 3. Job demands answers. So this outburst from Job triggers this massive courtroom-style debate with his friends. And to really understand their arguments, we have to talk about retribution theology. Think of this as the core philosophical belief that the universe operates kind of like a strict moral vending machine. You put in good deeds, you get blessings out. You put in bad deeds, you get suffering. Job's friends are totally, deeply committed to this worldview. So when they apply this logic to Job's situation, they insist Job must be hiding some terrible secret sin, because in their minds, a just universe would never, ever punish an innocent man like this. We see this rigid logic perfectly when Eliphaz asks rhetorically, "Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent." He's looking at Job's suffering and basically working backward to deduce guilt. And, the friends start off somewhat gently at first, kind of just suggesting Job needs to repent. But as the debate goes on, they get increasingly harsh and accusatory, straight up claiming Job is full of lies and is being punished exactly as he deserves. Well, Job is having absolutely none of this. He fiercely rejects their transactional logic. He basically points at the real world and says, actually, the wicked prosper all the time, and the innocent suffer all the time. He knows his own innocence, and he completely refuses to lie just to make his friends' neat little theology work. He explicitly calls them miserable comforters, telling them they're just offering empty, vain words instead of any actual understanding. He realizes pretty quickly that they can't help him, so instead, he demands a direct, legal audience with the divine to argue his innocence. "Oh, that I knew where I might find him." Job essentially wants his day in cosmic court. He wants to lay out his case, defend his integrity, and demand to know why he's been targeted. He is boldly challenging the very governance of the universe. Section 4. Voice from the Whirlwind. And remarkably, Job gets exactly what he asks for. The divine finally answers him directly, out of a fierce storm, a literal whirlwind. But listen, if you were expecting a neat, philosophical answer to the problem of suffering, you are in for a surprise. The voice unleashes this absolute barrage of unanswerable rhetorical questions. Where was thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? God is basically asking Job if he knows how to command the morning, or bind the constellations, or send lightning. It is an overwhelming, breathtaking display of cosmic scale. The perspective zooms out completely. The divine starts pointing to these untamable cosmic forces and terrifying beasts, asking, "Canst thou draw out Leviathan with an hook?" We're talking about magnificent, dangerous creatures that Job can neither understand nor control. And what this brilliantly illustrates is a complete decentering of human suffering. The universe is just vastly more complex, wild, and awe-inspiring than the strict, human-centered theology of Job's friends could ever account for. Section 5. The Final Restoration. So, after being confronted with the overwhelming mystery of the universe, how does it all resolve? Pretty swiftly, actually. First, Job yields to the incomprehensible scale of creation. He admits he spoke of things way too wonderful for him to understand, and he repents in dust and ashes. Second, and this is a huge detail, the divine directly rebukes the three friends. God says they have not spoken what is right, unlike Job. Their rigid theology is totally rejected. Job then acts as a mediator, praying for his friends. And finally, Job's own fortunes are restored. 14,000. Job's material wealth is restored to exactly double its original amount. Think about that. He started with 7,000 sheep. He now has 14,000 sheep, along with 6,000 camels and 1,000 yoke of oxen. His fortunes are totally reversed. The text then concludes with this rapid timeline of Job's abundant final years. His wealth is doubled. He has another 7 sons and 3 daughters, and the text specifically makes a point to note their beauty, by the way, and he goes on to live another 140 years. He lives long enough to see 4 generations of his descendants, ultimately dying, as the text so beautifully puts it, old and full of days. Which brings us to a really critical question for you to take away from all this. Does this text actually explain why suffering exists? I mean, we, the audience, know about the cosmic wager, but Job never finds out about it. The whirlwind never hands him a checklist of reasons. Or does the text instead challenge how we respond when facing the whirlwind? We're going to leave you to consider whether the text provides a neat mathematical answer to suffering, or if it simply demands humility and awe in the face of a complex, wild, untamable universe where our human logic just falls incredibly short. Think on that for a bit. We'll catch you in the next explainer.